Hello, good evening, and many thanks for joining us. This is QTV News coming to you live from our studios along Kairaba Avenue. Our headlines this evening: Day 5 of the filing of nominations. So one presidential aspirant said this would be his last attempt to seek the people's mandate, and another promising to boot out ECOWAS 72 hours after assuming office. Still on the presidential elections, we speak to some voters about their expectations for the campaign ahead and of any future president. The Judiciary hosts a two-day donor conference seeking to raise $1.2 billion to complete the remaining 4 years of its 5-year strategic plan. And in sports news, we hear how some Gambian footballers got on as they try to impress a European football scout. Well, for more on these and other stories coming up, I'm Ansmane Sonyase. And now we take a look at the news in detail. 4 more presidential aspirants presented their nominations, including 3 party representatives and 1 independent. We heard one party candidate say this was his last attempt to seek the mandate of Gambians, and another promised to boot out ECOWAS in 72 hours if elected. More in this report.
Sek Tijan Haidara of the Gambia Alliance for National Unity, GANU, was the first to arrive just after 9:40 a.m. In a black SUV with blackout windows, he emerged dressed in white, chatting with the press and the few members of the public gathered. As with the others, the IEC chairman welcomed him and invited him to submit his documents. A bundle of documents was handed over, inspected, and as with Dr. Ismaila Ceesay yesterday, Mr. Haidara had not come with the letter from his party sponsoring him as their candidate and 2 other items. He was instructed to bring these before 4 p.m. on Friday, 5th November. In answer to a question of whether he was in any alliance, his answer was sharp no. We never signed an agreement, so there is no divorce. In response to another question about being abandoned by Jammeh, who had instructed APRC to rally behind him, then change, he replied, "My destiny is in the hands of God, not in the hands of Yahya Jammeh. My priorities are to unite Gambians." On the how, he says Gambia is deeply divided, and so he will start with first his cabinet, adding, "We welcome every tribe in this country. We see ourselves as Gambians." He also explained why he paid with dollars, not dallases. Halifa Saleh of PDOIS was next, arrived accompanied by supporters, including some with banners carrying his recent catchphrase of system change. He was yet another candidate who had 1 document missing. However, on being told they were missing, he sought assurance that no documents were missing according to law, just what was desirable by the Electoral Commission. He was also assured that was the case. The campaign program is not a legal document required for nomination. It is just a desire, the IEC officials confirmed. Mr. Saleh said this was his last attempt to seek the people's mandate. He also mentioned system change. Go to many of our villages. No electricity, no water supply. Women producing vegetables without being able to find markets. Entrust us with power and we will deliver what you want. The central bank is a national osusu, a fund at the central bank to fund development. We are the only party to have explained how to eradicate poverty. The Gambian people are liberated. Now they have power. That is what we've achieved in 2016. This is the final battle of ideas. GAP, which had suspended its erstwhile leader, Musa Bachili, for announcing he was throwing his weight behind President Barrow, had the next candidate, Aliou Sow. He came with some supporters and presented his envelopes of documents. After this, he clarified that Bachili was suspended pending impeachment. He claimed there is foreign interference, but did not say what that was. Like most candidates, he either evaded or did a poor job of answering the questions put to him. Sow says he will give ECOWAS 72 hours to leave our country if he wins. On his party's manifesto, he says health, education, agriculture are our priorities. The last candidate on day 5 was Tamsir Jasseh, an independent. The only aspirant to turn up in a suit and tie so far. He was also the candidate with the longest list of incomplete documents. He did not file the requisite 5,000 signatures, which he said were in URR. Also missing was the certificate of character, the declaration of assets, a logo, and the official portrait. As with all others, he was given until Friday to present these items. Nominations continue on Thursday, when President Barrow will be one of the 4 expected to file a nomination. Mamudu Gajaga, QTV News.
Interesting times indeed. Now, as the December 4th presidential election approaches, we engage some members of the public on their expectations before, during, and after the elections. Jennifer Sonko has more.
All the Gambians we engaged on their expectations ahead of the December 4th presidential elections are calling for peace in the Gambia, regardless of their party political affiliations. Several peace forums with different stakeholders have taken place as we approach the elections. Getting to know what the ordinary Gambian thinks can be a judge of what might happen. For Alhaji Cisse, there are too many political parties contesting the December 4th presidential election, and he says individuals should have just joined already existing parties with which they share the same vision. He further called on the public to maintain peace throughout the period of the elections.
This country is for all of us. It doesn't belong to a specific tribe. If we really want Gambia to go forward, we shouldn't do something detrimental to the peace we already have. Let's be mindful of the things we say to each other, as we will all live in this country after elections.
For Usman Kujabi, Gambians should put the interests of the country first by voting in an individual who has the country's interests at heart.
I'm calling on Gambians to ensure we have a peaceful election. We should all join hands to support whosoever wins this election.
For Khadija Tuba, whoever wins the election should prioritize issues of women, especially education for their children. Whoever wins these elections, we are praying that he or she can move this nation forward. Alfuseni Manga calls on Gambians to respect the IEC's rules and regulations.
I'm calling on my fellow Gambians to maintain calm throughout the election period. Allah has already chosen the winner of this election.
Seiduso calls on whoever wins the elections to work with all political parties for the development of the Gambia. Everyone else we spoke to echoed the views of those expressed here, which we hope is a good sign. We currently have 26 presidential candidates, and candidates have already started submitting for nominations. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jennifer Sonko.
The Judiciary is organizing its first ever donor conference to raise funds for the implementation of its 5-year strategic plan to enhance quality justice delivery in the country. Meanwhile, Gambia's development partners, many of whom are at this donor conference, are expected to make pledges to support the implementation of the strategic plan. Mohamed Lamin Choi tells us more.
Effective and quality dispensation of justice for everyone is a pillar for peace, development and good governance, which, as mandated by law, is the function of the judiciary. After the official launching of its 2021-2025 strategic plan this year by President Adama Barrow, the judiciary is on a 2-day donor conference to fund its 5-year strategic plan.
The plan provides us with the roadmap and a framework for enhancing the capacity of the judiciary to deliver such quality justice and to enable the institution to discharge its role as a key player in contributing to securing good governance in the Gambia.
At this occasion, the Chief Justice reports progress in the judiciary, which includes state investment in physical infrastructure across the country and equipment, reforming the rules of courts and capacity building by leadership of the judiciary, thus strengthening the operations of the courts.
Shortage of courtroom space and of judges and judicial officers, the lack of equipment, the significant increase in the case workload of the courts, all these and more continue to pose serious challenges to the operation of the courts and to the speedy disposal of cases.
Attending this conference are Gambia's development partners, who are expected to make pledges for the funding of the strategic plan, which requires $1.2 billion for its full implementation over the next 4 years. Representing President Adama Barrow, the Minister of Justice, Dauda E. Jallow, expresses government's full commitment to providing the much-needed material resources to the judiciary.
While the amount might sound huge, this pales comparison to the dividend to be gained as a result of the comprehensive implementation of the strategic plan. The positive impact on the daily life of the citizens who approach the courts for respite, the speedy resolution of commercial matters resulting in a healthier economy and a more attractive investment climate, the speedy and efficient prosecution of cases ensuring deterrence of crime and maintenance of public order and tranquility.
Both the National Development Plan and the Judiciary Strategic Plan share the expected outcome of improved access to quality justice delivered without delay by an independent and efficient judiciary. Mamuru Njai, the Minister of Finance, highlights government's commitment to mobilizing resources for the implementation of the strategic plan, recognizing its role for sustainable peace and economic progress for the country.
It is key for everybody to understand that if the judiciary is not working, if the judiciary is not independent, the stability of the country is at stake. No matter what you do, if the confidence is not there, especially linked to investors, linked to our partners, there is nothing you can do. You cannot move an inch without an independent and self-sustained judiciary.
Strengthening the judiciary comes with reward that accords it independence, smoothens its operation and enhances the quality delivery of justice. It also guarantees impartiality and removes undue delays, thus providing good governance for a progressive nation. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Well, we'll now go for a short commercial break, but the news continues when we return.
Bank, you can make your vehicle number plate payments without any hassle. Walk into any of our bank branches or agencies located at Banjul, New Joswang, Karaba Avenue, Bakote, Tranquil Brusubi, Brikama, Basse, Farafenye, Numuyel or Garawal. Your number plate payments now made easy with Aji Bank. For more information, please call us on 422-8405 or 377-5811. Aji Bank, your investment partner.
Such exceptional prices, impossible to miss the Butty Days. It's the unmissable appointment of Buttyman from the 30th of October to the 13th of November. Take advantage of exceptional discounts up to 50% off on several product family. The best quality, price ratio for the best of construction. It's at Buttyman, so don't wait anymore. Let's hit the road for the Butty Days. Buttyman, everything for construction, from foundation to finishing.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. Be reminded you're following QTV News coming to you live from our studios along Kairaba Avenue. And I am Ansmane Sonyasi. Now, 30 influential people in the community and arts industry were brought together in Basse by Bekanyang in partnership with the Gambia Press Union to discuss hate speech and social media bullying ahead of the December 4th presidential election. For the Money reports.
The event brought together alcalos, religious leaders, women's leaders, musicians, and community leaders to join in the fight against hate speech, exclusion, verbal violence, and social media bullying to ensure a peaceful election in December 2021. The executive director of Bekanyang, Famara Jaune, explains why it is important for community influencers to join this crusade.
These participants are from very important sectors of our society. You talk about an imam who is very influential, not only in his village, but in the whole community. He could use his mosque, to amplify our voices. You talk about a musician who is well known in URR here. He could use his platform to enlighten people about the dangers of social bullying and hate speech. You talked about a community youth leader who is respected by the entire community, trying to learn more about the dangers of hate speech. So at the end of the day, we are carrying everyone along. So the message will be spread across the whole region and by extension the whole country, because you target the people who really matters. There are people who are very influential in their communities. There are people who can definitely impact on others.
The governor of the Upper River region, Samba Ba, urged participants to share and implement the initiative to combat hate speech.
As I always tell people, we have to understand that already there is the enabling environment that has been created by government of the Gambia. That is the democracy that we have been crying for, is the democracy that is existing now. But I think people misconstrue democracy. Democracy doesn't mean that you have to go and insult people. Democracy doesn't mean that you have to bully people. Democracy doesn't mean that you have to mount hate speech on people. Democracy is all about what we call going on your errands freely, within the confines of law, and respecting other people's rights.
Lamin Jain, a participant who is also an imam, says hate speech is condemned by Allah and His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he urges the public to desist from it. Since Allah brought us into this world, the first thing He created for mankind was attitude. He told Prophet Adam that you are going to rule this world and you need to have a decent attitude that unleashes the difficulties and brings peace to you. Allah also advised Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a lot of things. Among them, the Prophet chose to instill a good attitude in his followers, as he believes that a good attitude will make you desist from violence, hate speech, and as well as bullying. Charles Ose, a musician alias CMB2, also called on his fellow musicians to use their platforms to advocate against hate speech and social bullying.
Yeah, musicians have to come together so that they can sing something that, when the people listen to it, they got to feel that this musician is trying to throw a message to us that we got to able to listen to, and we know what we're gonna do.
Hate speech is any form of expression that advocates, incites, promotes, or justifies hatred, violence, and discrimination against a person or a group of persons for a variety of reasons.
Gambia, we not need no push and pull. And of a heartless people, me say kill one another. Every day and night in a different kind of weather now. Some of them turn and against the reality. Always, yeah, me pray for peace, love, and unity.
Reporting for QTV News, I am Fode Mane.
Well, 8 Gambian journalists have completed a 6-month migration reporting fellowship program organized by the Globe Media Service with support from the International Organization for Migration. Abibatu Sise has more.
This provided mentorship and coaching to the fellows to report on various aspects of migration, focusing on regular and orderly migration, irregular migration, and human trafficking. While highlighting the importance of the initiative, Lamin Jahate, the director of Globe Media Service, says Gambian media reports only 2% of migration issues, and the fellowship seeks to change that narrative.
But the Gambian media thinks that migration deserves only 2% of their coverage. So we thought we needed to change that. What can we do to change it? We knew already IOM was providing the trainings. But we, of course, understand that we now have to take a step further to go beyond the trainings. The trainings have already started to bear some impact. The reporters, at least, were covering, because before IOM started to intensively embark on some of the trainings now, I have not seen any survey, but I, of course, understand if any survey was to be done at that time, before the starting of their events, we would have understood that the coverage of migration would have been way less than even 1%.
Inaccurate or biased media reports can lead to misinformation, discrimination, and unfair treatment. Modou Diouf, a mentor, urges journalists to report accurately on migration.
The mentors for this Migration Reporting Fellowship project have also undergone training on the subjects mentioned above. These trainings provided the requisite skills and the requisite knowledge and skills for the effective implementation of the project. Both Globe Media mentors and IOM staff work closely in providing feedback and guidance to the pitches and draft stories submitted by the fellows to ensure quality control and also attaining the required journalistic standard for stories on migration.
Modou Lamin Diouf, on behalf of the graduates, explains the importance of reporting on migration and the impact it has in raising awareness.
I don't think migration should only be about stories of irregular migration and then people dying at the seas and all that, but we have other things that we need to talk about. And one achievement I must state here is that the U.S. State Department report on human trafficking stated that we're on tier 2, but I want to believe the next report would indicate a different story, because we have already seen cases that are going through the courts today, and I must say the stories that were produced by these fellows greatly contributed to that.
The media plays an important role as an educator on various aspects of migration. Despite the COVID-19 and travel restrictions around the world, the trend of irregular migration to Europe continues. According to the International Organization for Migration, over 3,000 irregular migrants died last year. This fellowship program also aims to address the issue of support reintegration processes and provide alternatives to combat irregular migration. For QTV News, I am Abibatu Sisi.
And we will now take a look at sports news in a moment. Now, many African footballers dream of being scouted by the European market. Players of recently promoted First Division Falcons FC played against Academy Club BK West United at the Q City football field on Wednesday in a match organized by football agents to scout talent for European clubs. Our sports reporter Mohamed Gajaka was there and he now reports.
African footballers see fellow Africans have made the step up to play for the biggest clubs in Europe and want to follow in their footsteps by getting scouted and signed. These players must display their technical abilities to those observing them. Their ball control, passing, movement, spacing, and athleticism should be very good if they wish to be scouted. While some seem to be raw in some of these qualities, others have impressed Belgian football agent Jeffrey Hoogland.
And yeah, it was a great game. Transitions was good. Very technical players. So we note one or two players, and we go again on tomorrow to see games.
African footballers are talented, which is why so many have gone on to be scouted and now play in some of the best clubs in the world. Is there any difference in having raw talent and technical skills, but still not be good enough to make the cut in top professional clubs?
Sure. What's difficult in Africa is to see the projection about the players, because the players is good here, but it's maybe not ready to go to Europe immediately. So we need to have a projection, and we see the technical skills, athletic skills, also the mindset.
A fundamental requirement of a footballer is to understand match formation, having tactical awareness, and to be able to execute a coach's instructions. Have some of these players shown that they have what it takes to play in a different environment and to professional standards? Football agent Jeffrey Hoogland explains.
For example, the team of Falcons, they are very in place. Their technical skills are good. Otherwise, the other team is very not so good in the technical skills. But we can work on that, and it's not a problem to work on that.
Mamadou Gajaga, QTV News.
And I'm afraid that's all about it. But before we take a leave of you, here's a recap for main headlines. Day 5 of the filing of nominations saw one presidential aspirant say this would be his last attempt to seek the people's mandate, and another promising to boot out ECOWAS 72 hours after assuming office. Still on the presidential elections, we spoke to some voters about their expectations for the campaign ahead and of any future president. The Judiciary is hosting a 2-day donor conference to raise $1.2 billion to complete the remaining 4 years of its 5-year strategic plan. And in sports news, we heard how some Gambian footballers got on as they tried to impress a European football scout. That is all we have for you in this bulletin. Do join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Until then, on behalf of the entire production team, thanks for watching.